We've had the Gilded Age, we had the Great Depression, and now this. And each time there's been an upheaval from the people. People in the streets, people getting together, people taking back, those kinds of things. Some of it resulted in stuff like Social Security. Farmers for having wind-blown pollen modify their cornfield, and when they harvest their corn with the new DNA, they're sued and lose their farms. Is that the one you'd like to talk about?
We could talk about that, but there's such a thing as, so campaign reform. We were promised campaign reform by Obama, and what we got was corporation.
Same old.
Same old.
Yeah, well, Goldman Sachs is pretty progressive, I understand.
Oh.
Well,
I know there's a punchline.
It's certainly part of a progressive administration.
Right. Progressive administration.
Yeah, when he named many of his top financial advisors directly from Goldman Sachs to try and put together healing for the economics of this country. That's like having the fox guard the hen house.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're constantly in that position with a two-party system.
Which shouldn't be.
Right. I mean, we talk about, we go to other countries and invade them for democracy, and we can only have a two-party system that are good cops and bad cops. What is wrong with this picture?
Well, why not be honest and just call them all Republicrats?
Yeah, right.
And 50% of the bankruptcies that take place in this country are caused from medical expenses. And of those 50% of bankruptcies with medical expenses, over half of them have insurance.
Say that again.
Over half of the medically caused bankruptcies in this country, over half of those people have health insurance.
And they still had to go
And they still went bankrupt because of unethical and even illegal dismissal of claims. Those are the kinds of economic conditions we find ourselves in, where unless you have the wealth to buy a team of attorneys, you can't fight the corporations. And very few people want to do that because that's how they have their money. So unless there's the kind of thing that Allegra was talking about earlier, with a cohesive spirit, okay, we will continue to bark at the moon, but
the thing is that people have to elevate. People have to what's the word?
Wake up.
Yeah.
Well, move beyond their private agendas and look at a larger scope and say, okay, look, can we identify an underlying problem? Okay. We've got a major one that's been around since 1886, when the Supreme Court gave personhood to corporations in the case of Southampton and Southern Pacific Railroad, I think, something like that. And from that time on, as an enormous abuse of the 14th Amendment. That's what it was based on. It was the 14th Amendment. And from that time on, the 14th Amendment was developed to protect African American slaves that were newly owning land, okay? And when the 14th Amendment was interpreted by the Supreme Court in 1886 to give corporations personhood, between 1886 and 1900, there were 270 some odd cases based on the 14th Amendment brought before the Supreme Court. 14 of them were for Native or for African Americans. The rest of them were to protect the interests of corporations. We have sent young men and women into combat over 50 times now since World War II. And every single one of those instances has been to protect the interests of corporations. Corporations have a taxpayer, us, paid private army to go to countries and make sure that Coca-Cola, Monsanto, Bechtel, Halliburton, and all of those corporations have their interests protected in those places. We wind up inadvertently or unwillingly supporting war. Not even, and none of it to protect ourselves, none of it to defend ourselves.
Right.
You know, I haven't been too worried. I can see about 3 miles down the road from my place, and I haven't noticed anybody coming after me for a long time. Okay. And so when we have this kind of travesty, and it's not the fault of our armed forces. These are poor kids, minority kids most of the time, that don't have another option to get a job. Okay, but our country, our leaders have fallen down on the job. There is a tacit agreement between the armed forces and our politicians. The armed forces, our men and women in uniform say, we will lay down our lives to protect our country. Okay? The other side of that is the politicians say, should say, we will only ask you to do that if our nation is actually in jeopardy. That's ethics.
Yes.
Okay. Any other behavior, okay, this country is threatening the property rights of the Coca-Cola plant in Nicaragua. Let's go down and bomb them. Okay. Yep. How many times have we invaded Haiti? Okay.
Now we're going to do Iran.
Oh, Iran, we just sent troops to Australia, for God's sake.
Australia?
We sent 500 Marines to Australia because we have to enlarge our presence in Southeast Asia to combat. 500 Marines are going to take on China, right?
Right.
This is a good idea.
Right.
Right now, there are what, nearly 200 countries as part of the United Nations. We have a military presence in 173 of those countries right now. I really enjoyed teaching high school.
I'll bet your students really good.
Oh, I told my children, I told the kids in my class, anytime you leave my classroom and you aren't outraged, I failed.
Oh, wow. Hey, oh.
And I got away with it for 5 years.
I fired you.
No, I had a wonderful school.
Where was it?
In Tucson, a little charter school, and I had about 100 kids. And it was wonderful. I couldn't have done that in one of the big box schools.
No.
You know, never would have happened. I mean, when your primary textbook is Howard Zinn.